All right, we're gonna put the large titty in the opening. Like we're gonna put it in front of the execution table, so you can't even get in there. You have to watch TV. Sorry.
I love this. To this point, most of what I knew about prison I had learned from the seminal 2006 Will Arnett classic, Let's All Go to Prison. That has changed. I'm Elise Willems. Welcome to Won't You Be My Gamer?
I'm Nicole Zabalich, and this is a show where two humble gamers meet up with an expert on the game topic we are playing in hopes of educating the masses and ourselves.
And really just talking to cool and interesting people.
Also that.
Under the guise of playing games. Today we are joined by Carrie Blakinger, who is a reporter for the LA Times. Prison, would you say prisons, jails in LA are your beat?
My beat is the LA Sheriff's Department, which includes all of the LA jails, which is the biggest jail system in the country. Fun-ish fact.
And you're also the author of Corrections in Ink, which is your memoir.
Yes, about how I did prison time before I became a reporter.
Nicole, what are we playing?
So, in previous, installments of us learning more about prison, we played games where we tried to escape from prison. Mm-hmm. Well, now we are building the prison system.
We're the system.
Mm-hmm. But it's going to be fun.
Why are there people in the prison if we haven't built it yet?
Great question. So, it is built.
Okay.
But I'm going to do some more building. For example.
Oh, God, this is dark.
So they need a place to do executions. And we were like, we're qualified. So we're going to build a
you might be more qualified than some of the people that actually do it, so.
Killed a lot of people in video games.
And this is going to be the best execution facility you've ever seen.
Top notch.
Baby, okay?
Yeah. We're talking no windows. We're talking one door. We'll see.
Carrie, you've covered death row in the past.
I have. So I have some questions about your execution facility. Mm-hmm. Have you been told what execution method they're using?
Electric chair.
Electric chair.
Oh, really? I thought you were going to go like Matilda when they try to make the kid eat the whole cake.
I don't get to pick. Cake wasn't an option.
Oh, okay.
It's never been an option.
I would have done something solar powered,
What?
Let's use the sun more.
Wait, we're going to kill them by sun?
Is what I would do if I had a say in this.
Because California has a surplus.
Most Texas prisons don't have air conditioning, so they're basically trying to do that anyway.
Boom.
So just speed that up.
Texas prisons.
They actually keep getting sued for it, seriously.
Oh, okay.
It's actually a big deal because roughly 2/3 of Texas prisons don't have air conditioning, and they're basically just these, giant cinder block ovens.
Why?
So actually, there was a hearing about this recently, and after years of denying that anyone has died from heat-related causes, the head of the prison system finally admitted in court that there were a few deaths in recent years that they do suspect were heat-related. So they're literally baking people to death.
Oh my gosh.
Separate from their execution chamber.
What about the opposite? What about when the ice storms happened in Texas?
So I don't remember if there was any actual deaths from that, but there were in LA jails. There were 2 people that died after catching hypothermia about a year and a half ago. Just because they didn't have adequate heat there during a cold snap.
When those ice storms happened, were prisons prepared for that?
No,
nobody in the state
nobody
seemed
was
to be.
prepared, right? They were losing power, they were losing heat. Some of them had generators, but those prisons have not done well in ice storms or in hurricanes. For the hurricanes, they would evacuate sometimes, but they always screw up and have some that aren't expected to be in the path. So, prisons are really just a nightmare for natural disasters in general.
Where do you evacuate to? Is it a jail or a different prison?
You would have to take them to a different prison, but it has to be a natural disaster that you have enough advance notice about.
Nicole, you made some ground really quick.
But
I have no idea what you did.
A gift, maybe a calling. I'm joking.
You should move to Texas.
No.
What did you do?
I am making 2 rooms within this room so that I can have a cell and an execution room.
Okay, so is the cell for the, where you take them right before they're going to be executed, there's a separate death row, I assume.
Yeah.
So not an open concept.
Okay, so you also need a witness chamber.
Oh, I don't know if he requires that.
Okay, well, then that would be an inaccuracy.
Yeah, all right,
good. They always have some sort of witness chamber. In Texas, for instance, their execution chamber has, an area where the execution is occurring. It's a lethal injection, so they have a gurney, not an electric chair. And then they have a room where the victim's family can watch, and they have a room where the inmate's family can watch, and then they have a room for officials.
And so they separate those 2 families.
They do, and then you have 5 reporters that can witness, and they split them between the 2 rooms.
I feel like in a lot of movies, TV, everybody's in the same viewing gallery, so to speak.
Some states might do it that way. I don't know, but that seems foolish. That seems like that would cause problems.
Yes.
All right, we got some doors. We're making money moves, you guys. And this prison has a ton of money.
It's
Okay.
a private or?
I don't know, but there's a CEO.
CEO, I mean, I think it is
yeah.
a private prison. I don't think there's any private prisons that are doing executions, honestly. I don't think that. I feel like that would end up resulting in legal challenges, I mean, routinely prisoners' lawyers are suing to try to avoid executions happening, so I can't imagine any private prison would want to do executions because they're absolutely going to get sued.
How can you sue to prevent an execution from happening? Like, what does that mean?
So there's a number of different ways. I mean, routinely you would just do it as part of the appeals process. Specifically, like you would file post-conviction writs to try to overturn some aspect of either the conviction if you're trying to say he's not guilty, or you would just overturn the punishment and say, yes, this person is guilty but should not be executed for these reasons. Like maybe, the crime shouldn't have really been considered death eligible, or maybe the person is too intellectually disabled, or, maybe they were less culpable than initially believed. But also, commonly, lawyers are suing because they will say that the execution method itself is cruel and unusual.
Inhumane.
Yeah. Well, specifically, they'll say it's violating the Eighth Amendment.
Okay.
So this was common with lethal injections. They were saying that, we don't really know a lot about the extent to which these people are suffering. We believe they suffer in these ways. So they would file a lawsuit instead of doing it as part of the appeal. They'd actually be suing over the injection protocol. So, if you're a private prison building an execution chamber, you're 100% going to get sued. And you too, probably, as the architect. So,
Honestly, I deserve it.
yeah, that's fair.
I can
You
tell.
should rethink your life calling here.
I have been this whole time.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've got a call here. That's the essentials taken care of, but there are still a few improvements you could make. Ooh.
Okay. I tried to put bamboo flooring in. It's,
Why?
I think that
Well,
bamboo...
literally, why?
Interesting.
It's a good resource. It's a cheaper floor. It's biodegradable. It's natural. I think bamboo is we underuse in general. Why for this prison? I don't know. It was an option and I liked it.
I mean, I do feel like executions, like, not to get graphic, tend to be messy. Like, you don't want bamboo. I feel like that's going to be absorbent.
Let's put a porous
Yeah.
fiber. It's going to absorb that.
What happens if you just refuse to build it on ethical grounds here? What happens in the game? Is that a choice?
I think the game just kind of stops being played.
You uninstall.
Yeah, you uninstall.
Request a refund.
Oh, wow, that's quite a way to abolish the prison system.
So is this the...
I
so
refuse.
the priest is here reading him his last rites?
Uh-huh. And
Edward
so
Ramsey?
He is who I am building this execution chamber for.
How bizarre. So this prison system is doing executions, but built this chamber for just one man and doesn't already have an execution chamber. California actually did dismantle its execution chamber a few years ago after Newsom took office.
Yeah, so what's the state with California? Because death penalty is currently on a sort of a hiatus here, right?
Yeah, yes, there's a moratorium that got put into effect after Newsom took office, but it's not actually a change in law. It's not, they didn't take it off the books. They're just saying, hey, we're not going to actually do any executions. However, new people can be sentenced to death row. Like, you can still sentence someone to death. They're just currently saying we're not going to carry them out. Under the current DA of Los Angeles, George Gascon, he is not seeking death sentences, so LA is not sending new people to death row, but potentially after the election, we could end up with a new DA who would again be sending people to death row. But the fact that they're still sending more people to death row and not doing executions, and the fact that California has a very, very slow appeal system as compared to other states, means that we actually have the biggest death row. So,
like, from my understanding, there are a lot of people who are on death row who have been there for 25 years because they just have appeal after appeal, and their sentence was, even prior to the moratorium, it was getting pushed and pushed because...
Well, I wouldn't say it's like appeal after appeal. There's a very, there are clear limits. You can't just file endless appeals. Like, the courts, the legal system, you're procedurally blocked from doing that. You only get, one bite at the apple. There's just a bunch of different levels of the appeal process. So, like, oh God, this is going to be so nerdy. Everybody bear with me.
You're in the right place.
Okay, so the basics of how death penalty appeals work, it starts with you have a direct appeal, which that's the first one that's automatic. Everybody gets that, whether you're a death penalty or not. And you can only challenge what happened in the trial. You can't bring in, like, new stuff. And if you lose that at the trial court, then you go up to some sort of appeals court in Texas. It's the CCA, the Court of Criminal Appeals, and then you can go up to the U.S. Supreme Court. And then you would go to post-conviction appeals, which follows the same process. You would go to the trial court, and then you would go to the state appeals court, and then you would go to the Supreme Court. But with post-conviction, you can bring in new allegations. You can say, hey, that lawyer that handled my trial was incompetent. He fell asleep during trial. So that's new because it wasn't something you were arguing at trial. And then if you lose the whole state post-conviction process, then you go to the federal post-conviction process, in which case you can raise claims that are violations of federal law. And you would start with in the federal trial court, and then you'd go to the federal appeals court. So here it's the Ninth Circuit. In Texas, it was the Fifth Circuit. And then you go up to the Supreme Court. So basically you have three steps of appeals, and each one has like 3 layers.
Nerdy yet compelling.
But the reason that these things take so long is because just the courts take a long time to review the cases, and it takes a long time to reinvestigate everything, to write your appeal. And sometimes, like in California, it takes years and years to even get assigned a lawyer.
Everyone has really great cheekbones. Now, is that true of prison?
Is that a real question?
No. But like if it were like Gotham prison, it would be true. I got to build some wires to power my electric chair.
You're handling a lot of different aspects.
I have
of
some
this.
real questions about your life choices at this
Yeah,
point.
and I just seem so qualified because they're trusting me with so much.
Where are the subcontractors?
I have to hire them.
Can we check out what you did in that room there, Nicole?
Yeah. So let me get out of utility.
With our expertise, we'd like to check your electrical work.
Absolutely.
See here. Oh,
so
the floor looks great.
I took both of our advice.
You did go with the bamboo.
I did bamboo in the opening room, for
in the foyer.
In the foyer. But the cell and the execution, I did a nice modest tile. Mm-hmm. I think really complements the walls, brings out everyone's eyes. But the bamboo's still nice and, environmentally friendly. Now we're going to add some wiring.
The system's not perfect, Carrie, but
but
it's the best we've got.
the wallpaper
You've taken
is.
a broken system and made it non-functional. So again, I know I brought this up before, but I do think that, you probably need a place for people to witness this execution.
Does the game even give you that option, Nicole?
I could put in some benches.
Because we could go to the
my
Steam
God.
page and leave a note for the developers. Need viewing room.
Oh, I hope that a bunch of death penalty lawyers see this game and leave a bunch of notes for the developers.
And then we'll see patch notes, PBS patch notes.
So while that's getting built, let's add some benches.
When did this game come out?
A couple of years ago, probably.
Okay, so at a point when people were still not using the electric chair for executions. 'Cause that is not most states don't do that. I think Tennessee does, and maybe Alabama gives it as a choice, but there are a number of years where nobody was doing that anymore.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of discussions about prisons and jails varying from state to state. California versus Texas, et cetera. Like, where is this all dictated from? Because it's on the state level, or like?
Yes, to some degree. So, jail systems are run by the county, so that's up to the sheriff.
Okay.
Some states, they're not run by the county, but in most states, they are run by the county. But, when you're talking about prisons, yeah, it's at the state level or the federal level if you're talking about federal prisons, but they also sort of have a lot of autonomy, and the wardens tend to make up a lot of the rules. Like, there are rules system-wide, there are policies system-wide, but usually whoever's made those system-wide policies can't really tell what a specific warden is actually doing or telling people are the rules.
How does someone become a warden? Like, are you appointed, or are you?
No, so typically you would start, as a guard and work your way up in a lot of systems. There are some management positions, like in the Federal Bureau of Prisons and in federal prisons, that tend to be appointed. Sometimes the head of an entire system will be hired from another state system, but usually, like, wardens of individual prisons have made a career of it and moved their way up.
You see up here, I've got $600,000 to work with. And my stocks are up.
So this is, definitely a private prison.
Yeah.
I think that is one of the most unrealistic things of having an execution chamber in a private prison. You only have 52 beds in this? This is a very small prison.
It's very small. I only have one maximum security resident, which may be the one that is due for execution.
But you have no death row prisoners. It says 0. Why are you building an execution chamber?
I do
What
see
a
that
waste
number.
of money.
Yeah. It almost makes you think something else nefarious is going on. Added plants, though. So I think that really...
That is I don't know whether that's amazing or just ghoulish.
I feel like the plants are
Why?
distraction.
I mean, I did it from a place of amazing, not ghoul, but I can see now that there is mixed messages here.
Okay.
Like, you can't live, but they can.
There's no room even for the observation, like, because where the observation room would go, you put the plants.
Oh
No, I
my
just
god.
put benches right in there.
Can you believe you put benches in the execution chamber? Who does that?
Geniuses or psychopaths, but it's a fine line.
The latter.
Yeah.
Have you electrified the entire wall?
No. Like Jurassic Park style?
Yes, that is rather
Maybe
what
this
it looks
is a
like.
dinosaur prison.
Is that a pill?
It does look like.
She's like find a pill on the ground.
Oh yeah, what is that?
Oh,
Oh, and
gentleman
somebody
is overdosed.
overdosed.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, that's pretty realistic.
Are overdoses common?
Yeah, actually, the LA jails have done something interesting to deal with that. They have started putting Narcan, the nasal sprays, like mounted on the walls in some of the units. There's still a decent number of overdoses in LA jails, but just as you're seeing an overdose, increase in fentanyl overdoses in the free world, it makes its way into prisons too.
If someone has a drug addiction entering prison, is there a way to basically like ease them in, or is it like cold turkey?
It depends. More places are being more helpful with it than they used to be. But it used to be that you would just be going off cold turkey, and then you get released without any sort of medication like Suboxone or methadone. So it's been long known that people have a higher rate of overdosing immediately after release from jail or prison. Like that happens with people going to rehab too, like any sort of period of sobriety, especially enforced sobriety. When people go back, they don't correctly estimate how much their tolerance has dipped. And that's when they're most likely to overdose and die. So there are more jails now that have started offering things like Suboxone and methadone, which are medications that people can take that can reduce the risk of relapse. There are more places that are starting to get on board with providing those medications behind bars, but like the LA jails provide some, but not nearly enough to meet the demand. Funny thing, Rikers Island, as much as it has been a complete mess for decades, Rikers Island in New York was actually kind of at the forefront of this. They have given methadone to people in their jail for decades. Nicole?
I thought I was this prison architect genius, and here I am with a taste of reality.
Just a psychopath.
Just a psychopath.
Do you think maybe she's secretly trying to dismantle the system from the inside out?
Like literally, yeah, okay, all right.
Oh, I can't get this electric chair to work.
Oh my gosh, poor plants.
Oh my
More
god.
plants. Let's dedicate
This
the
is
money
honestly
to
such a
plants.
ghoulish game premise, though.
Yes.
Like, I know we're
Yes.
making fun of it, but this is so incredibly ghoulish. Literally, who thought this would be a great game idea?
The point of this is nefarious. Like the whole point of
Yes.
this is best case scenario, you create prison.
Worst case scenario, you create prison.
Yeah. Well, worst case scenario is that you accidentally catch the prison on fire and then you can't figure out how to summon firefighters. That was a playthrough I did.
That actually seems pretty on brand.
Yeah.
Well, I've covered a lot of jails that are just routinely on fire. Like the LA jails have a problem with people just starting fires in their cells because they can't heat their food and are being given cold food. I don't know exactly how they do it 'cause we did not light fires where I did time. But they'll take razor and pencils and like do something with the electrical outlet and spark what they call a wick, which they construct out of tightly wound toilet paper. And then they'll let the wick just burn for a long time. And then when they need to cook food, they will sometimes take the mattress off the metal bunk and just use the bunk as a giant griddle and heat the whole bunk. And I've written a few stories about this, but this sort of thing happens in some other prison systems. I didn't realize it was happening in the LA jails. And so some of the oversight inspectors went in and saw these like 3-foot high flames in various cells and could smell the fire, and the staff were just not doing anything about it because it was just normal. They were just like, oh yeah, there's always
This is a
something
normal
burning.
smell of
So yeah, all I'm saying is I guess that's very realistic of you if you're starting fires.
Did you add a ping pong table in here? What did you do?
So it's giving me the option to decorate this execution chamber as I see fit.
What?
And I see fit to not use it as an execution chamber, but as a game room.
See, this is what I'm talking
You've
about.
had a moral awakening in the
I've
course
had a
of
moral
this.
awakening.
Taking it down from the inside.
What else can we add in
We're
here?
adding a shower.
Okay, and you put a dragon on the wall?
We're gonna add a drain though.
That
because-
does seem dangerous next to the electric chair.
Okay, so in hindsight, I do see that my shower was a flawed plan.
I guess in California, technically, this won't be used for the foreseeable
Right,
future.
and
so.
she can't get it to work. So.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Details.
a gravestone.
Oh, and
Ooh.
the inmates are loving it.
No. Come
Morale's
on.
up.
Wait, so that's messed
Too much?
up.
Too much?
That's
Good note. Good note. I love that note.
Oh,
Large
radio.
TV.
We could do a sock hop.
All right, we're gonna put the large TV in the opening. Like we're gonna put it in front of the execution table so you can't even get in there. You have to watch TV. Sorry.
I love this.
Okay, you can still get in the room, but like you have to go around
Have
the
to
TV.
climb over
They're
the
using it. They're using the games.
Well, great job, Nicole.
Yeah, I saved a life.
Well, Carrie, thank you so much for coming back a third time. We're shocked every single time. Where can people find out more about you and the work that you do?
I'm on Instagram and TikTok at Carrie Blakinger, and you can follow my work at the LA Times.
Thank you so much. Nicole, how can people support you making more amazing creations here on Won't You Be My Gamer?
A prison for the arts is what I'm changing this to.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, Won't You Be My Gamer? Find us PBS SoCal. We're on YouTube. We're on Instagram. And tell your friends, like and subscribe.
Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Carrie, will you come back?
Anytime.
One more time with Carrie. Here we go.